Hello and welcome to this 25th edition of the Cricket Web Podcast, a podcast by and for fans of cricket all around the world. My name is Jake, better known on the forums as How's That, and joining me is another distinguished member of the Cricket Web forums. Please welcome Nitesh, better known as Zorax.
Hello.
Hello, our podcast is 25. We're a quarter of a century old.
Podcast is getting older than me.
Is
you
it?
grow up so fast.
Yeah. Is it true that you have to? You're old enough now to umpire in official internationals, so do you have to sort of learn how to pull off a Panama hat effectively before that can happen?
So I got news over this holiday. On the 26th, on Boxing Day, there were some trial matches happening for the national team. So they had the 18 players, they had U19 guys, and some of the NAT guys like Babar Hayat were playing on the ODI ground. They're playing all of T20s, so they need umpires. So I got to umpire. And I found out after umpiring in those two games that the HKC is trying to organize ICC Level 1 accreditations, like the accrediting course to come through the HKCA and to carry out a session, after which point we'll become ICC Level 1 qualified umpires, qualified to umpire in international cricket.
Right.
So that could happen by the end of next year.
At that point, do you have to sort of cease and desist being talking about other umpires, or is that already happening? Are you already one of them?
I'm already one of them. Yes, I really sympathize. I don't approve of all the jokes about Kumar Damasena. I put an embargo on liking posts that complain about umpiring.
You're taking a stand then, because that's a big deal for you.
Gotta look after my own.
Midwinter comments on our previous episode, so looking at the notice board, we've got, he says, impressive turnaround time between podcasts. I think it has been over the holiday period. We've been very, very busy, and we'll be grateful to announce that in just a moment after we've been doing this. He says, I was going to post that you missed the famous dual international precedent setter. Billy Midwinter played for Oz, was kidnapped by W.G. Grace and played for England, and then came to his senses, came back to play for Australia again. But the next podcast was already up by the time we got around to it, so fair enough. He also says, for this last week's 11, which was the Changing Roles 11, he says there was the debut opening bowling partnership between Asif Iqbal and Majid Khan, who didn't bowl much later in their careers. Yes, good point. So Asif Iqbal became a middle-order batsman. Majid Khan batted 3, I think.
Oh, no.
Not sure. But yeah, he says in 64-65 against Australia at Karachi, they opened the bowling together and did okay on the face of it.
You missed out one of the biggest names for that 11. You forgot Ajay Agarkar, who started his career as an opening batsman at school level.
Did he
became
really?
A fast bowler. Yeah, he started as an opening batsman at school level. He became a fast bowler. He was a medium pacer. He became quick bowler. He gained speed, so he became a fast bowler. And then he came a full circle by scoring 100 at Lords.
Bit broad-esque then.
Bit broad-esque, yes.
Yeah. Was there any other evidence of Ian Bishop being a batsman at some stage, or did Quincy just make that up last time? I don't know.
I've never heard of it.
Okay. I'm going to assume it's true. More exciting developments in Thread. We put up the previous episode on YouTube.
Ooh, YouTube.
And so we've thought about some ways to experiment with what's happening on YouTube at the moment. There's not a lot in there before. Obviously, people can listen to this online, but we have come up with a couple of things that we can do strictly on YouTube, and it is part of, and I've thought about this name very carefully, the Boxing Day Test Podstravaganza.
Nice.
Yeah. And as part of the Boxing Day Test Podstravaganza, we have done some video episodes. So, can you talk to us about what we've done?
So we've done 2 episodes of the Cricket Web podcast that have nothing to do with cricket.
Which is surely what our fans need and want.
Want to hear us talk about stuff? It's already bad enough that we talk about something that we should know something about. Now we're going to be talking about things that we actually know nothing about. So you got around to trying to teach me what rugby is, and in return I try to teach you what MMA is. And we've got 2 videos in the works. Well, I say we. You've got 2 videos in the works for that. I'm just waiting for you to release them.
It takes forever. The podcast that we uploaded to YouTube last time took something like 3 hours of upload time, and that's just a few pictures. So we've got episodes that are 2+ hours of video of watching this, and I've no idea how long it's going to take. I imagine several weeks. I have no idea how anybody uploads anything.
I think they have better internet in more developed parts of the world.
Oh, don't tell me what to do. So that's some of the stuff that we've been doing since our last podcast, and we hope you enjoy some of our ignorance and some of our frustrations coming out on those sports, particularly if you're a fan of both. If you're a fan of neither, then you'll be in the position of the person who has to learn about it. So that should at least be something to latch onto.
Indeed. Be fun.
Speaking of things that we know nothing about, on the last podcast, I was convinced that the last Test match, the 5th Test match between England and India, was finally going to be the one where something happened. England scored 477 in their first innings, and I was feeling good about it, and then cold hard reality hit me like a wet fish.
I told you England were not going to win a game that whole series. I don't know why you let your hopes get up. When you saw 477, you should have realized that at best England will be trying to cling on for a draw on the final day.
It is clear, though, if you score 400 plus several times in a row in the first innings, and England did in the first innings 3 times in this series score well over 400, or exactly 400 in one of those games, I think, and just could not make it into a substantial total in a way that defies cricket, a way that defies sense. They were just completely unable to take wickets for the entire thing. It didn't strike me as happening for the entire thing. It struck me as happening definitely in 2 or 3 tests. I don't think it would happen every single match without fail. They just would not be able to do anything with a good total.
Indian batting lineup is so ridiculous now at home. Because Kohli's come back to form, Jara and Vijay score runs, and Karan Nair comes out of nowhere right off the bench, like 3rd choice reserve batsman, something crazy like that. He scores a 300. Lokesh Rahul almost has a 200. It's just sheer batting strength in home conditions, and England's bowling was pretty mediocre, the whole thing.
And I didn't really see that happening. I think with the way that they bowled in Bangladesh, they definitely had a weapon in their seaming, in their seam bowling, but it didn't happen. Moving on. Can we move on swiftly?
They really should have used their fast bowlers more. But I figured out that the way Cook is and the way they think of the team think tank, they're not willing to have the players break in the process of winning a game. They're very much more long-term minded, and so they're not going to overwork the bowlers just to win a game. That's why I say the Australians need to bring a whole army of fast bowlers and just be willing for them to all break on tour if they want to challenge India. If you're going to underbowl your quits and bowl your mediocre spinners for a lot, then you're not going to do anything. It's not going to work.
Right. So, speaking of poor predictions, we've got the year-end podcast, is what we're pretty much doing right now, and all over the internet you'll find different teams of the year. Like The Guardian did one, Fox Sports did one, the ICC do an incredibly strange one that has its cut-off date in September, but they don't announce it until later on, so they've got this weird out-of-date way of doing it. Ours is a bit different, isn't it? So last time, in January 2016, we picked an 11 that we thought was the most improved 11 of 2015. Had people like Stokes and Guptill and things like that in it, because it wasn't necessarily the very best players. It was just the players who had gone up in international cricket, who had either established themselves or had a comeback, or in some cases just performed way higher than what we thought they would in either format of the game. And we decided to predict the next 11 to do that, so the most improved team of 2016. And I did it better than you.
Oh, you didn't?
Yeah, I did, because what you've done is you've picked players who were already good, more or less, and have either regressed or stayed as they were, whereas I've picked players who had the most capacity to improve, some of whom actually did.
None of your players improved. Okay, let's just go over our selections. Let listeners decide.
Right, okay. So the opening pair, fairly similar. We both picked Alex Hales, which didn't really go very well because he was in the Test team and now he isn't. I don't think either of us could have predicted him refusing to go to Bangladesh, which seemed to have been pretty much nail in the coffin for his Test career.
Yep.
But you could argue that he's improved as a one-day batsman. He's had plenty of one-day hundreds this year, so maybe he's got a bit more consistent in that form of the game.
Yeah. I was predicting him to dominate at home in England, but he didn't do that.
Well, he did do pretty well against Sri Lanka, but had a poor series against Pakistan.
Yeah.
We've chosen a different opener for the other one. We've got Shikhar Dhawan was my pick, because I picked the wrong Indian opener.
Yes.
I thought he would get back in the side. I thought he would do okay. As it is, he's basically where he was at the start of the year. You picked Tom Latham, who I think is basically where he was at the start of the year. He's definitely being picked for New Zealand in the next Test, but he hasn't really scored enough hundreds. He tends to get 40s, 50s, 60s. He's just okay, really. But he's young, so he's got time to improve. He might improve next year.
Yeah, he might next year. He just needs a breakthrough year to kick on and turn those starts into something substantial. He did just score a big 100 against Bangladesh in ODI, so maybe next year's the year.
Should we be talking about Bangladesh, New Zealand ODIs? I didn't feel it was particularly important.
It's two heavyweights of world cricket playing. It's very important.
Number 3, we both picked Azhar Ali.
Yeah, that's a good pick.
Yeah, that was a solid pick. He's done well. He was a bit iffy at the start of the year. He got that big 100, which is sort of he was relying on a bit because he wasn't getting many other scores after having moved up to open the batting. But I think that was pretty good. And obviously he's just hit this 100 in Australia to give Pakistan a chance in the Boxing Day Test.
Yeah, and he looked good in New Zealand as well, so he's been good.
Did he get a score in New Zealand? I thought none of them got a score in New Zealand.
I think he got a 50 somewhere.
Right.
I think you should go check that. He's had a good year, so yeah.
Okay, you picked 2 middle order batsmen. I didn't really. You picked Angelo Matthews, who I think should count negatively because he's gone backwards in a big way.
Yeah.
He hasn't. What's happened to him? He's not really done anything. There was an awful moment at the start of the Boxing Day Test between Sri Lanka and South Africa. Angelo Matthews brought himself on first change.
Yeah. He bowled 11 overs for 18 runs.
Well, even so, this is first morning of a Test match, first Test match of a series. You've got 3 seamers, including your young up-and-coming fast bowler who bats at number 11 at first change, and the captain brings himself on, a medium pacer who averages 50-odd in Test cricket. It was madness.
Leading from the front, and he bowled 11 overs for 18 runs, so he didn't do a bad job.
Maybe didn't do a bad job, but, South Africa got a 100 opening partnership, and they needed to take wickets. If they'd have that 100 opening partnership out of a total of 280 or whatever they got, it's substantial. And Matthews contributed significantly to that opening partnership.
He contributed 18 runs.
All right.
He's gone backwards. But I picked Bavuma.
You picked him. To be fair, you didn't pick him right at the start of the year. You picked him after his 100 against England, and he's still really just got that 100 against England. He's been a spectacular fielder, and he's been reasonably consistent, but he's yet to improve substantially from where he was.
I think he did well. He didn't have a bad series, a bad season. He hasn't had a big score yet, but I think compared to where he was when I picked him, his reputation's gone up. His reputation has gone up
mainly as a fielder, I think, rather than a batsman.
Still counts.
Okay.
Still counts.
I picked 2 wicket keepers, so this, I suppose, is my middle order pick, is Jos Buttler. And I think that's pretty much a win because he's got himself back in the side. I don't really expect him to be back in the side in the summer because it was one of those sort of end of losing tour, not really interested in what happens to him. It's just a sort of a stopgap. He was only there because they couldn't possibly see themselves going back to Gary Ballance, who was on tour as a reserve batsman because they decided to pick the same squad to Bangladesh and India and then just keep everyone with them. So Gary Ballance has gone into his sort of just a sad, featureless room of non-selection, and Jos Buttler has come in to fill in the gap. I think he did moderately, not terribly.
He's got a 50.
Yeah, so that counts as something. England didn't really bat badly in this series, as I've said.
Yeah, wasn't that batting. Didn't really improve, though. He just got back in the team.
Jos Buttler is definitely the best pick so far, of either of us.
That's early.
Yeah, okay.
And who's your other keeper?
Matthew Wade, which I'm going to count as a win because he is also back in the Australian Test team. You picked Peter Neville. who has gone from being comfortably established in the Australian Test match team to being cast out.
Knee-jerk selections.
He
Didn't
scored,
need to drop the keeper.
Did he or did he not score no runs at all? The entire year, he scored nothing.
Neither did Wade, to be fair.
Yeah, but Wade's back in the side, so he's gone up in estimation. Neville's gone down in estimation. Currently, I'm winning this selection.
Neville got dropped, went to Shield cricket and scored 163, which is again a higher score than Wade has scored all year.
But who's in the Test team?
It's the Australian Test team. Does it really matter? They had Mitchell Marsh play like 50 games.
Yeah, I also picked Mitchell Marsh. I picked the extra all-rounder instead of a middle-order player. And to be fair to Mitchell Marsh, I'm trying to come up with a way to be fair to Mitchell Marsh. So you might have to take a minute.
He didn't regress because he couldn't really get much worse to begin with.
He did seem to regress almost as a bowler. He did well as a bowler in 2015 when he was playing in the Ashes over here, but he wasn't really necessary at home for Australia. They were winning loads and loads of matches, and even despite the enormous totals that other players were getting in the middle order, players like Smith, Voges, Khawaja, he got no runs whatsoever. And after the tour of Sri Lanka, where they actually realised that they needed some runs from their 6 and 7, he was on the chopping block. They
even picked Moses Henriques in that Sri Lanka tour
as a batsman, I think.
As a Sri Lankan condition specialist batsman, they never picked him again. Just for Mitch Marsh. It was very weird.
Didn't he come in for Usman Khawaja in a strange moment? Because Khawaja can't apparently play spin.
Yeah, something like that. It's very weird.
All right.
Yeah, Mitch Marsh.
After that, there's another all-rounder that we both picked, Mitchell Santner.
That's a good pick.
It didn't really go anywhere.
I think he established his spot in the team.
Yeah.
He faced more balls than any other New Zealand batsman on that tour to India, and was the most economical spinner.
All right, well, yeah, fair enough then. He's done okay. You picked another spinner as well, which was Ashwin. I picked Dane Peat as my spinner. That's definitely a loss for me because Dane Peat's gone nowhere and been replaced in the Test team. I think he was a little bit harshly treated maybe, but he hasn't really taken enough wickets to command a spot, so fair enough.
Yeah, apparently he got injured. He got dropped because he was injured, and he never earned his way back in domestic cricket. Meanwhile, Maharaj and Shamsi both were bowling a lot better, so it's fairly, according to South African fans, is justified. I think Ashwin, because I at that time when we were picking the teams, India's schedule for the year was not yet announced. I didn't know if they were going to go overseas. They did go to the West Indies. I don't know if that really counts. So Ashwin's, I picked him purely that I thought he would perform a lot better overseas, and he hasn't really had the chance.
Yeah, so I'm not entirely sure that counts for a win for you. I think Ashwin probably is a seriously improved cricketer this year because he's become an all-rounder.
Yeah, he's batting. I did predict him to score 100 this year. He scored 2 of them. But he scored them at number 6 and not number 8 as I thought. So, I'll take that.
Yeah. And then when we come to the pace bowling, you've got 3, I've got 2. You've probably got one good pick here in Josh Hazlewood.
I also have Kyle Abbott, and I also have Chamira.
Yeah.
So Chamira has not really clicked, but the other 2, Abbott, I deserve Abbott and Hazlewood. Those are good picks.
Yeah, Abbott's. I'm not entirely sure he's well ahead of where he was at the start of the year. Dale Steyn is injured, which is let him come back in and show what he can do. But I think most people recognise before this year that Kyle Abbott is a good bowler who just doesn't get games.
I had predicted that since South Africa had a busy schedule this year, that the pace attack would break down and Abbott would step in and have people clamoring all over him for being really good. Which is exactly what happened. So yay!
But you picked the wrong. South Africa fast bowler to actually come in Dale Steyn and actually be good.
Hey, Abbott was good too. Just because another fast bowler is better doesn't mean Abbott wasn't good. Hazlewood was a good pick, solid pick.
Chamira probably regressed a little bit, got injured, hasn't really been able to come back from it.
He bowled in this test against South Africa, and I think he went wicketless.
Yeah, he went wicketless, and he was expensive as well. Didn't look up to it.
How about your quicks?
Kumar Roach has disappeared off the face of the earth. Varun Aaron has
joined Kumar Roach.
Yeah.
Aaron's been injured for basically the whole year. Has not been playing.
Yeah. I did pick 2 players who were not playing international cricket. at the time because I thought they might be able to come back, and I thought they have some talent and they have maybe a role to play. I think Varanaran has it in him to be at least as good as, say, Umesh Yadav, for example, but he hasn't managed it. So
he's just pure pace, man. He's got nothing else going from bowling wise yet. He's short of international stack quality, but he's young. They're working on him. Maybe in 2-3 years.
Maybe. So there's a couple there that could arguably make the most improved team of the year. Maybe Azhar Ali was an okay pick. Mitchell Santner did fairly well. Kyle Abbott, like we said, I think he's pretty much where he was at the start of the year, but at least he's playing now, which can count and certainly count as a bit as an improvement. Josh Hazlewood is probably the only one that we picked that get into the team of the year, and Ashwin as an all-rounder, but not as we picked him. So who else should go in the most improved team of 2016?
Virat Kohli is captain.
Yeah, I'm absolutely fine with that. I don't think he's a particularly amazing captain. I think he's a animated captain. He's interesting as a leader, but he's just a successful player, and he just, they say there's winners in the game, and Virat Kohli is just a successful figure, isn't he? And he's landed as a batsman. I think he's improved more as a batsman than he has as a captain over the course of this year. Because at the start of the year, you probably would have said, with all these comparisons being made to the three slightly younger, slightly more similar world-class middle-order batsmen, Root, Smith and Williamson, that Kohli was behind them as a test player, even though he was ahead as a one-day player. And now he's averaging over 50 in test cricket. He's had that brilliant series like Smith had against India not too long ago, or Root had against Australia, and smashed the opposition. So, yeah, by all means, he's up there.
He's averaging 76 for the year 2016.
Yeah,
like 100-ish in ODIs and T20s. Hard to get better than that.
Yeah, and I don't want to spend too long fawning over him because he gets that basically on every cricket website on the internet. So we can leave them to it. And if you'd like to read a bit more about how good Kohli has been this year, turn on your computer and it will just automatically come in.
If you want to get Jonna listening, we have to talk more about Kohli.
We mentioned that maybe we could put Azhar Ali in as an improved player this year. He's played two fantastic innings, one a little bit inconsistent otherwise. I think maybe a more improved Pakistan batsman is Babar Azam.
Yeah, I mean, this is a weird one because Azam's actually only averaging 30 in tests. Considering no one heard of him before the year, and then he racks up 3 tons in ODIs and gets into the test team and scores a couple of 50s. It is an improvement. He's not great yet, but it's better than where he was before.
He's established himself as a one-day player. Because at the end of 2015, with his innings against England, he didn't look very impressive at all. He'd done some really nice shots and put in a few good partnerships, but he hadn't played a substantial innings. His high score was about 60. And then he suddenly wakes up and has 300s in a row against the West Indies, and then Pakistan are falling over themselves to try and get him into the test side. That's why Azhar Ali ended up opening in the first place, to get Babar Azam playing. They tried him out as both a number 6 and a number 3, sort of switching around with Asad Shafiq. And even though Asad Shafiq is an established test batsman now who can play some pretty nice innings, they seem more confident in hiring their aggressive one-day player, Babar Azam, batting at number 3. So that's a vote of confidence for him.
It's very Pakistani to put your aggressive number 3 and an aggressive ODI batsman. And they did have a freely opening test for a while.
Yeah, I don't think we can try and look for patterns in what Pakistan do. It doesn't really work. So that's middle order. What about top order?
Lokesh Rahul.
Yeah, good call.
Favorite player, Rahul Jr.
His 2020 100, I think probably the second time of asking was the thing that I least expected to come out of him.
Yeah, he scored 100 in each format, like within 8 games of playing each format.
Yeah.
Just like on his second T20, in his third or fourth ODI, in his 8th test or something, like just racking up hundreds. And much, much better than when we first got a glimpse of him in 2015.
I think it's his success that makes the Shikhar Dhawan selection look worse than it actually was.
Yes. He's overtaken Shikhar Dhawan now.
In all formats?
Yeah, in all formats, which is unexpected considering how Dhawan was locked in the 11 at the start of last year. So.
And he's supposed to be Rahul Jr., which means he shouldn't really be getting any T20 100s.
Do you know Rahul Dravid has the fastest ODI 50 for an Indian batsman?
I did not know that.
Yeah, that is. He scored like 20-something balls against Zimbabwe back in like the 90s.
That seems like it should be beneath him.
I think he played the ending. He's like, what am I doing? And he just like, no, I'm not stooping to that level anymore. No, get over it.
Not smashing Zimbabwe in limited overs cricket. That's not his job.
Lokesh Rawal has that ability too. He showed us against West Indies.
Carlos Brathwaite.
Improved play for an opener.
That's the wrong Brathwaite, isn't it?
Yep. I mean, Craig Brath.
That's the one. Neither of them are named correctly. Neither of them are named correctly. There's Brathwaite instead of Braithwaite. Craig Braithwaite. If you're aiming for Craig and accidentally spell it with a K, that's one thing, right? But if you know it looks wrong, then trying to fix it by adding an extra G is you're not doing it right. You're looking at it completely incorrectly.
Hey, how many great cricketers are there who have the name Craig spelled correctly? Maybe they're doing it wrong all this time, and this is the way you should be spelling it.
Point taken. Is he going to be a great cricketer? He seems to be fairly limited as a batsman, doesn't he? But he has actually come up with basically the perfect test match where they managed to beat Pakistan in the UAE. He's the only player ever to open the batting in a test match in both innings and finish not out in both of them. So he's effectively the only player to have a perfect game.
If that's the definition of a perfect game, then yeah, he did a really good job, and he's averaging 50 for the year. He's a limited batsman, but you don't need a lot of great batsmen did not have many strokes, and I think Braithwaite, if he wasn't West Indian, would have great. I mean, imagine if he was in English. Like he's basically Cook, he's right-handed.
Yeah, I can see the comparison. Just very reactive in the way that he plays. Judges balls on their merits, attacks when only to filth, that sort of thing, and has 3 shots that can take him to 190 not out.
And he never tires. He bats for days and days. He's so content at the crease. And if he was in English or he was South African, he would have a lot more tests and a lot more fame. But he's stuck in the West Indies.
All right, and number 3.
Number 3, Usman Khwaja.
For the second year in a row.
We picked him last year for the improved 11 as well.
Yes, because last year is when he got back in the side and hit 100 against New Zealand. This year, he started off hitting more hundreds against New Zealand in February to establish himself. Elevated his status to world-class whinging when he get dropped against Sri Lanka because he can't play spin very well. But after a slightly questionable re-entry into the Australian side against South Africa, batting at number 3 instead of Steve Smith, he hit a world-class 100 in the 3rd test to win it. So can't go too far wrong. I think he's safe to say probably the 3rd best Australian batsman right now that Voges has gone.
Yeah, comfortably. He's the only the only 3 names in the top 6 that are like guaranteed, and he's one of them.
Yeah, although Hanscom has done well as well.
Yeah, it is true. Unexpected debut.
Alright, so down at the other end, all-rounders. I think Ashwin gets in as an improved all-rounder because he's been playing at number 6 and actually been making a good fist of it.
Yeah, he's having 40 plus for the year. He's actually, if you take Ashwin and Rohit Sharma's records, and not only Ashwin's scored 200s more than Rohit Sharma, but they've all scored the hundreds. They both have scored all the hundreds against West Indies. So you take out the West Indies records and you just compare the batting records as runs scored against every other nation that's not the West Indies, and Ashwin is still better.
So Ashwin is Rohit Sharma with the bat and also the best bowler in the world.
Yes, basically, that's the point. That's a really good all-rounder.
Have I pandered enough to the Indians yet?
I don't know.
We'll try again in a minute.
We need to talk about how awesome Mohammad Kaif is.
Okay, I'm not going to do that. 2 England players, I reckon, make the most improved 11 of 2016. Not Stokes this time, although you could definitely argue it because he's done well with bat and ball and scored runs in Asia, which most people would have thought might be beyond him. But instead of him, Johnny Bairstow, I think, is an automatic selection for this.
Yes. 1,400 runs as a wicketkeeper. Fantastic.
And he came into the series against South Africa in December of last year, averaging 29 with the bat.
Whoa.
And it's not even been, and that's, across 3 years, because he made his debut in 2012, and he's been in and out of the side. He was sort of not, he didn't have any confidence at all from the English fans, and now he's like our banker. He comes in at number 7. Usually when England have had to spend so much of this year at sort of 80 for 4, 80 for 5, those kind of scores, with one of Cook or Root to try and bat with, maybe. And then he's gone and got scores. He's got 50s, 60s, 70s, 140 not out, followed by 160 against Sri Lanka in the summer, when Sri Lanka actually bowled well against our top 5. And we had people like Hales and Vince going cheaply every match. And Bairstow's just bailed us out of match after match. Couldn't do anything in India, unfortunately, because bailing us out from 150 for 5 to 400, it turns out wasn't actually worth anything. But still an amazing year for him.
Very mad prior, like, this season.
Yeah, which I think it's taken him a while to try and figure out what his job is, and it turns out to be Matt Pryor. He did okay with as wicket keeping, I thought, in Asia, in Bangladesh and India. He's not perfect, but with all the fielding and bowling problems England have had, he's not actually been one of them.
Yeah, no, his keeping has not been. It's not been great, but he's not missed anything obvious as far as I remember.
Well, people have gone a bit quiet about his wicket keeping, and if he was keeping extremely badly, then you can be sure that we'd be hearing about it a lot. Instead, his wicket keeping has largely been fine, so it's been mostly having a go at Alistair Cook.
Yep.
The other England player that definitely gets in for me is Chris Wokes, because at the start of the year, after his tour of South Africa, where he was just poor, he'd been sort of unlucky and maybe a little bit innocuous, even though he wasn't giving many runs away, that kind of bowler for a little while. And in South Africa was the first time he was just outright poor. So he'd had a bad series, and he was averaging something like 65 with the ball. And then after the English summer, he's a mainstay in the side. Like, he's not going anywhere. Just a huge amount of improvement. He's actually taken his wickets this year at 22, and that's despite not really being that effective in India.
Yeah, it's pretty good. He was in my players you do not rate 11, who then performed well. So yeah, he fits. He gets in.
Yeah, he's going to be playing for him for a long time. He also averages about 30 with the bat now, which is quite something.
Yeah, I have the stats: 30.8 with the bat and 21 point something with the ball. A lot of wickets, a lot of runs, 400 something runs, almost 500.
Right.
Not bad.
Okay, so that's 6, 7, 8, and then we've got fast bowlers. Josh Hazlewood, we reckon, gets in the team because he's almost like this summer for Australia. I think he's been their best bowler, better than Mitchell Starc, who was the best bowler in Sri Lanka.
Yes, and like his stats actually read poorer than they were in 2015. But that's because he's bowled on slightly flatter decks and gets more challenging opposition, and also because, yeah, as you said, Starc hasn't bowled that well. Lyon's gone missing this season, and the third quick has just been a rotating spot. Hazlewood's been the only lock in the team.
Yeah.
Been consistent, been reliable, been very economical. 2.7 or something his economy rate is, which in this day and age is staggering, and in mostly Australian conditions. So he's definitely the best bowler, and I think he's going to be their mainstay for quite a while until he breaks down.
He absolutely loves the pink ball as well.
Yes, he's so good at it.
The other one that has been to Australia as well and done pretty well out of it, Kagiso Rabada. Started the year taking...
It's a bit tricky.
He started his career doing okay in one-day internationals against Bangladesh in 2015. He was ineffective in the India series, where South Africa were absolutely desperate for somebody to try and knock the Indians over. They ended up having to bowl, Morning Morkel trying off-cutters and Dean Elgar trying to get something out of these spin-friendly wickets, and Rabada was just an also-ran, didn't take hardly any wickets at all. Then he announced himself at the start of the year with 10 wickets against England in the fourth test to win that match, and has then been pretty much sensational the entire time in both formats of the game. I think he's definitely got this.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of improvement, I think it's just mostly his improvement is just understanding Test cricket and just getting to that level. The talent was always already there. It's just like this, he figured out how to put it together. Yeah, he's been really good. He's been very scary. And he's only 20. Or someone 20-year-old bowled that well.
Shall we pick him again for next year?
Yeah, he has so much ceiling for improvement. I wouldn't be surprised. Let's see. And last fast bowler should be Mohammad Shami.
It should be Mohammad Shami. I think he was desperately unlucky and still came out with pretty good figures out of this series. And before this series, I probably wouldn't have picked him for India, because he was averaging in the mid-30s. He hadn't been particularly impressive. It just seemed to be a guy who get some games for India because somebody was always injured or somebody wasn't particularly in form. But he's been the best Indian bowler, even better than Bhuvaneshwar, who I think most people would have picked him over him. And I think he's been, I think he's pretty much first fast bowler that India want to pick now in both formats of the game.
Yeah. I mean, in ODIs, he's always been one of our main go-to bowlers. He's our main death bowler. What's really impressive is his test matches. He's come in as fast bowlers in India have a very niche role. You just have to swing the new ball, and once the shine is done, you got to come in short bursts and hustle them with the old reverse swinging ball. He's bowled short, bowling well in bursts. He's reverse swung the ball. He's done well in ODIs. He's just been half the year injured. Again, despite that, whenever he's on the pitch, he's been our best pick.
Yeah.
But Bhuvaneshwar has been really good as well. It's kind of hard to pick him too, but I think Shami's just been there more. Bhuvi's been off the field a lot more.
I think Bhuvaneshwar had his peak when he actually came to England and was India's man of the series in that 2014 series. I don't think he's kicked on much since then.
He's just been breaking down a lot since then.
Yeah. There has actually been some cricket happening, this being recorded on Boxing Day. Should we talk about some cricket?
Yeah, sure.
As we speak, Sri Lanka are in South Africa and they are losing. They managed to have a pretty good first day, taking 6 wickets, and a good first morning to the second day as well, because they managed to bowl South Africa out. After that 100 partnership we mentioned earlier, JP Duminy managed to get a few shots away. He scored 50. But somebody who I think might well go into a future good performances from players we don't rate, Suranga Lakmal, because he's managed to pick up 5 wickets in his first match in South Africa.
I remember making this point a while back where if you ask someone who were the best Asian fast bowlers going around, and they would have mentioned Ishant Sharma and Lakmal, everyone would just laugh at them because those guys were a joke just a few years ago. But Lakmal's come a long way, and he's been Sri Lanka's best seamer for quite a while. So I was actually quite happy to see that he was nipping on the top order because he's had this ability. He's been doing this in Sri Lanka for a while.
One reason why it's hard to take Lakmal seriously is because he is just... It's very easy to watch him and be aware of why Sri Lanka don't win matches overseas, because he looks so medium pace and he can bowl such a wide line outside off stump that it's just unthreatening.
Yeah.
And it has to take him... It's relatively rare that he does actually manage to come on and get a proper spell together, but he clearly did that yesterday. This morning, though, with South Africa bowled out for 286 and with Sri Lanka honestly having a decent chance, it's become painfully clear that they don't have Kumar Sangakkara anymore. That's basically what's been happening. Top 4 for Sri Lanka, 5, 16, 7, 0.
And then Matthews scores 39.
Matthews managed 39, which is fairly typical of where he's been over the last 18 months or so, since his prolific 2014. And it's not good enough, really. Dhananjaya De Silva is still there. Rangana Herath has given it a go. He scored a few boundaries. But Sri Lanka 138 for 6.
What a tale. You have Herath batting at 8.
Yeah, Herath is actually one of my favourite tail-enders to watch. I think he might actually be the best batsman to watch in the world, because just wildly inappropriate slog sweet shots to any delivery.
He's batting at 8. Sri Lanka's got a very long tail.
Yeah, they've got Chamira, Lakmal and Pradeep. Pradeep can't bat at all. Chamira, is a fast bowler who is down to go in at number 11 behind Nuwan Pradeep. Lakmal, I think, just has a reasonably straight bat but doesn't score any runs. So, yeah, 3 number 11s to come in.
It's a joke of a tail. This is modern day cricket. Like, you can't have tails this deep anymore.
Yeah.
Or this long anymore. You got to bat.
So it looks like Sri Lanka are going to... It looks like Sri Lanka are going to struggle on this tour with their top order the way that it is, and Matthews not in form either. Their bowling has probably done about as well as it can do to get rid of South Africa for 286, but it seems like it's not going to be enough for them.
There's not much you can say for Sri Lanka on this tour. They don't have it. Unless Matthews scores a big punt somewhere, and really a lot of people raise their hands up and perform fantastically for them to pull the best off against South Africa. South Africa's team is looking really good. It's the same team they played in Australia. They got Maharaj back. They've got Quinton de Kock at 7 still. It's a very strong team. Stephen Cook. Stephen Cook's been scoring some runs lately. He scored some in Australia. He scored a 50 here.
If they were playing a test match at Durban, there might be room for Rangana Herath to come in. especially on a fourth innings wicket, he might be able to do some damage there. But the test matches are actually at Port Elizabeth, Cape Town and Johannesburg, which is just the worst schedule Sri Lanka could have.
Even Herata, if he's going to come handy in the fourth innings, he needs some runs on the board.
Yeah.
I don't see these guys giving that to him. Oh well. There was another test match, Pakistan in Australia,
where the tourists are actually putting up something decent. The annoying thing at the moment is that the rain appears to be rescuing the Australian performance. They've played 2 full days, but they've only managed to get in 100 overs, of which has all been Pakistan's first innings. Pakistan in a little bit of trouble early on, 1 for 18, 2 for 60. Yunus Khan managed 20 or so. Jackson Bird has taken a few wickets, which is not really the ideal for Pakistan's point of view. But a partnership between Azhar Ali and Azad Shafiq has managed to put them into a decent position. Azad Shafiq managed 50, fair enough. Azhar Ali is 139 not out of 310, which is just a fantastic performance.
It is. And Stark has bowled 23 wicketless overs with 77. Hazelwood has bowled 26 overs for 2 wickets and 33 runs.
So Hazelwood has been the best pick of the bowlers so far.
So good. Mohammad Amir came out to bat the team in a bit of trouble. Sarfraz Ahmed looked completely clueless in his short innings from what I saw. He charged down, first ball, with the score reading well, of 240 for 5. First ball, he charges down the wicket. Jackson Bird misses it. He scored 10. But Amir has come out and slapped a few boundaries around. So this partnership has suddenly pulled them to a decent score. But Pakistan has well done bad deep. But yeah, it's going to keep raining. We're not going to see a result. It's annoying. Azhar Ali's 139 is the 5th highest score by Pakistani batsmen in Australia at the moment. The highest ever is 158. So Azhar Ali is in with a shout.
They've actually batted okay. They managed to get... In the last podcast, we were talking about Pakistan flopping over in their first innings, which is kind of to be expected from them. It's something that they like to do in Australia. After that, in the 4th innings of the test, they were set 490 to win. Steve Smith didn't need to actually declare with 490 to win. Didn't actually give himself enough... And it didn't actually save himself time to win the game in a strange way, because if Pakistan were still batting for the rest of the match, they would actually get the runs, and they nearly managed it. They started the 5th day with 4 wickets in hand, or was it 3 wickets in hand? 4 wickets in hand, I think, and needing only about 80 runs to manage it, and they came a little bit closer, but as is often the way of things, the closer you get, the harder those runs start to be, and they didn't quite have the capacity to get there, despite Azhar Shafiq managing his 100.
That was very disappointing, because they needed 40 to win at 2 wickets in hand, and they lost both those wickets in 1 over. The last wicket was a run out.
And I was desperate for Steve Smith to be punished for that declaration.
Yes.
Because there is an attitude, particularly among commentators now, not only that aggressive is good and you should always be declaring and you should always be enforcing the follow-on, you should always be doing this and blah-de-blah-de-blah. And yeah, okay, you should declare, but that doesn't mean you just turn your brain off completely to when you should declare, you know? If you are setting, say, 450 in 5 sessions, that's a bad declaration. Because assuming a reasonable rate of scoring, and you are going to set some attacking fields to allow that rate of scoring, then if the other side bat for all that time, then they would have got past the total. So you won't have that extra time to bowl, because they won't be batting anymore, because they'll be in the pavilion having won the game. So in order to get yourself the most possible amount of time, you do actually have to declare with the amount of runs on the board that are going to last for the rest of the game. And just throwing all of that out of the window in the name of being aggressive is just brainless. It's just turning your brain off and deciding you're not going to think about cricket, which is what your job is to do.
It's the mentality is that if you've got above a certain number of runs, you just assume that the side can't chase it because it's never been done before.
Yeah.
And the idea of the declaration is you declare when you can't lose the game. You could still lose the game and you declare that moment. That's a big risk, and it's sometimes worth it if you want to set them, say, 303 sessions with the hope, so 302 sessions with the hope that they go for it and you can take 10 wickets in the process. But generally speaking, that the idea is you build a situation from where you can't lose the game and then you declare. You don't declare needlessly. And when India were declaring after Karuna scores 300 and everything. I thought it was fantastic. I'm like, the series is won. There's no point thinking you need 4 sessions to bowl out England. Take one day to bowl out England. You probably can do that. And if you can't, it's a draw. So what? You do the game. You gotta aim for that draw first.
Well, it's not even that sometimes. It's just refusing to think and just treating the declaration as getting on with it, rather than actually what the declaration is used for, which is to try and win the game. That's what bugs me.
The Pakistan are doing a lot better than the second test.
Yeah, absolutely, and one hopes that the rain doesn't ruin it for them. So we said we might talk about New Zealand against Bangladesh.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the ODIs at the moment. Mustafizur is back. He's still lacking rhythm. He's not in full form yet. Latham scored a big 100. Colin Munro is an interesting player. He's one of those guys who, once he gets going, you can't really set a plan or set a field to bowl to him. You just kind of wait for him to hit something up in the air and take the catch. That didn't happen. He just ran away with his quick 80. And his 300 plus is too much for Bangladesh to chase. The team is not built to chase that. They don't have that. They don't have that much icing. They have a lot of cake. They have Moses batting down at number 8. They're really the best hope in winning in New Zealand ODIs was to basically either bowl them out cheaply and try to chase the low score, or mat first and attempt to squeeze them and chasing a target of like 270 to 280. New Zealand home conditions are pretty good, but the test match will be interesting because Bangladesh have won the test match now, so they have that belief and they have the mentality. They know they can win. And Mehdi Hassan bowling in New Zealand conditions will be interesting to see. Mustafizur hopefully be back in full rhythm for the test matches. That will be interesting to see. And New Zealand haven't had great form yet, but they did beat Pakistan twice. So,
tell me about Lockie Ferguson, who appears and sounds like the most Scottish person to have graced a cricket field, but he isn't playing for Scotland.
No, he's playing for New Zealand, and he's just a really, really fast guy. Really, really fast bowler. That's it.
It's not often that one of those turns up for New Zealand. It's normally a sort of medium fast player who averages about 30 with the bat.
He's proper quick. He hurried David Warner and stuff, so he's very raw, very lack of control. He's still young. You remember Adam Milne?
Yeah.
That, but a less polished version. Milne was getting somewhere before injury. This guy's a less polished version of that.
Alright, he also hasn't come in at number 8 with the bat, so I'm pretty confident that we might actually be a fast bowler.
Yeah, Milne is an all-rounder in domestic cricket in New Zealand. He bats like 6 there.
Ah, not another one.
The engine room is real. All engine room players.
What's going to be your play of the week this week?
Jadeja.
Go on.
Talk about that again.
Alright, I'm just going to switch off for a minute.
Not only does he come in and score a quick 50 to help us accelerate to a target from where we can declare from, he partners net to 300. He then comes out, he takes the first 2 wickets to fall, takes an amazing catch for the next wicket, and takes another 3-4 wickets. Basically, he wins the game on his own, 7 wickets in the 4th innings. He's actually been out bowling Jadeja in patches, and he's showing off all his range now. He's not just bowling darts into the rough. He's tossing it off, he's showing gal, he's bowling well in bat-friendly services, he's running through his overs quickly when he has to. He's actually scoring runs with the bat now. His fielding is always top class. He's a captain's dream. He's a wonderful, wonderful player. I struggle to think of a team in the world that he would not get into right now. You can switch back on now.
Excellent. Right, thank you very much. Okay, so mine is... I haven't watched much cricket, unfortunately, this week because of, there's apparently this holiday surrounding Boxing Day, and it's something to do with Jesus or some such. I'm not entirely sure what goes on, but it's definitely something to do with Boxing Day. My favourite thing that happened this week is surrounding Karen Nair's 300, right? So this is something that appeared in the Metro, which is like a free UK paper, and it's a fact about Karen Nair, and I'm going to read it out in full. Karen is a final year student of Sri Bhagwan Manavar Jain College. Due to his cricket career, he hasn't found the time to write some of his exams, but his father insists that Karen will write those exams and complete his degree, and perhaps even pursue higher education when he finds the time. For his parents, academics are the first priority, and that's in quotes.
I've heard this quote. I've heard about this.
So he's just scored 300 for India, and it's like, do your exams.
Yeah, that's the way Asian families work, because he's out there, he scores 300, and he comes back home, and he knows his parents are like, good job, beta, but now cricket's a kid's thing. You gotta grow up now, trying to get your degree, go settle down, get a job. You can't keep doing this for a long time. It's just the way it is.
I think Karen Nair should focus on his exams and never play England again. So, Player of the Week goes to Karen Nair's dad.
It works.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of the Cricket Web podcast. You can join the conversation at facebook.com/cricketweb or twitter.com/cricketwebnet. But better yet, come and get to know us at cricketweb.net/forum. We thank SoundCloud for hosting us at soundcloud.com/cricketweb and Jonathan Coulton for the music you are hearing right now. We hope to see you next time, and it's goodbye.